ॐ भूर्भुवः स्वः तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यं भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो नः प्रचोदयात् ॐ शान्ति 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 नमस्ते मेरे dear friends. I am going to give you a very important video, that is Swami Annamalai clarifies some of the doubts of the devotees. The main theme of this discussion will be that self alone is real, because self is God, self is Brahma, Brahm and self are the same, and only Brahm is real, rest everything is unreal. Let there be peace and love among all beings of the universe. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Just remain like the sky and let thought clouds come and go. A devotee asks a question: what is the easiest way to be free of the little self? Here, little self is ego. Remember, the thoughts coming out of the self, they constitute mind, and modification of mind is ego. So, Annamalai Swami replies, stop identifying with it. If you can convince yourself this little self is not me, it will just disappear. Otherwise, also, ego and mind, they are non-existent. Next question is, but how to do this? Annamalai Swami says the little self is something which only appears to be real. If you understand that it has no real existence, it will disappear, leaving behind it the experience of the real and only self. Understand that it has no real existence and it will stop troubling you. Consciousness is universal. There is no limitation or little self in it. It is only when we identify with and limit ourselves to the body and the mind that this false self is born. If through enquiry you go to the source of this little self, you find that it dissolves into nothingness. Now, this little self is ego. Source of this ego is our Atma. So, direct this little self to towards the self means inwardly. It will emerge with the Atma and only real self will be there. Next question. But I'm very accustomed to feel I am this little self. I cannot break this habit merely by thinking I am not this little self. Annamalai Swami replies, this little self will only give way to the real self if you meditate constantly. You cannot wish it away with a few stray thoughts. Try to remember the analogy of the rope which looks like a snake in the twilight. If you see the rope as a snake, the real nature of the rope is hidden from you. If you only see the rope, the snake is not there. When you have that clear and correct perception that the snake never at any time existed, the question of how to kill the snake disappears. Apply this analogy to the little self that you are worrying about. If you can understand that this little self never at any time had any existence outside your imagination, you will not be concerned about ways and means of getting rid of it. See, something is completely absent, and worrying about something which does not exist is just ignorance. So, have the conviction that the mind and the ego both are non existent, both never exist. They are just a temporary phenomena. Next question. It all is very well, but I feel that I need some help. I am not sure that I can generate this understanding by myself. See, this is all due to the lack of confidence in yourself because you means your Atma. Have faith in your Atma, everything will be solved. Until unless a person lacks faith in himself, then he will always have trouble and nothing else. Annamalai Swami replies, the desire for assistance is part of your problem, not the solution. Don't make the mistake of imagining that there is some goal to be reached or attained. If you think like this, you will start looking for methods to practice and people to help you. This just perpetuates the problem you are trying to end. Instead, cultivate the strong awareness I am the self, I am that. I am Brahma, impersonal, absolute reality. I am everything. You don't need any methods to get rid of the wrong ideas you have about yourself. All you have to do is stop believing them. The best way to do this is to replace them with ideas which more accurately reflect the real state of affairs. If you think and meditate, I am the self, it will do you a lot of more good than thinking I am the little self. How can I get rid of this little self? The self is always attained. The self is always attained. It is always realized. It is not something that you have to seek, reach, or discover. Your vasanas, mental habits, and tendencies, and all the wrong ideas you have about yourself are blocking and hiding the experience of the real self. If you don't identify with the wrong ideas, your self nature will not be hidden from you. You should you said that you needed help. If you desire to gain a proper understanding of your real nature is intense enough, help will automatically come. If you want to generate an awareness of your real nature, you will be immeasurably helped by having contact with a jnani, realized being. The power and grace with the jnani radiates quieten the mind and automatically eliminate the wrong ideas you have about yourself. You can make progress by having satsang, association of a realized guru, and by constant spiritual practice. The guru cannot do everything for you. If you want to give up the limiting habits of many lifetimes, you must practice constantly. Most people take the appearance of the snake in the rope to be reality. Acting on their misperceptions, they think of many different ways of killing the snake. Thus, they waste their energy, time on the things which actually does not exist. That is the problem. They can never succeed in getting rid of the snake until they give up the idea that there is a snake there at all. That there is a snake there at all. People who want to kill or control the mind have the same problem. They imagine that there is a mind which needs to be controlled and take drastic steps to bear it into submission. Yes, this is also a great problem. Mind is non-existent. Mind is a temporary phenomena, and you want to control it with all your power, and you want to dissipate your energy on unnecessary things which are absent completely. That is this is the greatest problem. If instead they generated the understanding that there is no such thing as the mind, all their problems would come to an end. You must generate the conviction I am the all pervasive consciousness. All pervasive consciousness means Atma, in which all bodies and minds in the world are appearing and disappearing. I am that consciousness which remains unchanged and unaffected by these appearances and disappearances. Stabilize yourself in that conviction. That is all you need to do. Bhagwan Ramana Maharshi once told a story about a man who wanted to bury his own shadow in a deep pit. He dug the pit and stood in such a position that his shadow was on the bottom of it. The man then tried to bury it by covering it with earth. Each time he threw some soil in the hole, the shadow appeared on top of it. Of course, he never succeeded in bringing the shadow. Many people behave like this when they meditate. They take the mind to be real, try to fight it and kill it, and always fail because they start with failure and end is failure. Why? Because they want it to control mind which actually does not exist at all. So your starting itself is a failure. So what will be the result? If you start with failure, what will be the result? Failure only. No in between, nothing. Failure, failure started with and failure also ending with in between nothing. All you have to do is understand that it is not me. Cultivate the awareness I am the immanent consciousness means Atma. When that understanding becomes firm, the non existent mind will not trouble you. Next question is put to Swami Annamalai. I don't think that repeating I am not the mind, I am consciousness will ever convince me that I am not the mind. It will just be another thought going on within the mind. If I could experience, even for a moment, what it is like to be without the mind, the conviction would automatically come. I think that 1 second of experiencing consciousness as it really is would be more convincing than several years of mental repetitions. Annamalai Swami replies, every time you go to sleep, you have the experience of being without a mind. You cannot deny that you exist while you are asleep, and you cannot deny that your mind is not functioning while you are in dreamless sleep. This daily experience should convince you that it is possible to continue your existence without a mind. Of course, you do not have the full experience of consciousness while you are asleep, but if you think about what happens during this state, you should come to understand that your existence, the continuity of your being, is in no way dependent on your mind or your identification with it. When the mind reappears every morning, you instantly jump to the conclusion, this is the real me. If you reflect on this proposition for some time, you will see how absurd it is. If what you really are only exists when the mind is present, you have to accept that you did not exist while you were asleep. No one will accept such an absurd conclusion. If you analyze your alternating states, you will discover that it is your direct experience that you exist whether you are awake or asleep. You will also discover that the mind only becomes active while you are waking or dreaming. From these simple daily experiences, it should be easy to understand that the mind is something that comes and goes. Your existence is not wiped out each time the mind ceases to function. I am not telling you some philosophical theory. I am telling you something that you can validate by direct experience in any 24-hour period of your life. Take these facts which you can discover by direct experiencing them and investigate them a little more. When the mind appears every morning, don't jump to the usual conclusion, this is me, these thoughts are mine. Instead of watch these thoughts come and go without identifying with them in any way. If you can resist the impulse to claim each and every thought as your own, you will come to a startling conclusion. You will discover that you are the consciousness in which the thoughts appear and disappear. You are allowed to run free like the snake which appears in the rope. You will discover that the mind is only an illusion which appears through ignorance or misperception. You want some experience which will convince you that what I am saying is true. You can have that experience if you give up your lifelong habit of inventing in I, which claims all thoughts as mine. Be conscious of yourself as consciousness alone. Watch all the thoughts come and go. Come to the conclusion by direct experience that you are really consciousness itself, not its ephemeral contents. Clouds come and go in the sky, but the appearance and disappearance of the clouds does not affect the sky. Your real nature is like the sky. Like space, just remain like the sky and let thought clouds come and go. If you cultivate this attitude of indifference towards the mind, gradually you will cease to identify yourself with it. Question. When I began to do sadhana, spiritual practice, everything went smoothly at first. There was a lot of peace and happiness, and jnana, true knowledge, seemed very near. But nowadays there is hardly any peace, just mental obstacles and hindrances. Annamalai. Whenever obstacles come on the path, think of them as not me. Cultivate the attitude that the real you is beyond the reach of all troubles and obstacles. There are no obstacles for the self. If you can remember that you always are the self, obstacles will be of no importance. One of the Alwards, a group of Vaishnavite saints, once remarked that if one is not doing any spiritual practice, one is not aware of any mind problems. He said that it is only when one starts to do meditation that one becomes aware of the different ways that the mind causes us trouble. This is very true, but one should not worry about any of the obstacles or fear them. One should merely regard them as being not me. They can only cause you trouble while you think that they are your problems. See, our vasanas, our mind, our ego is against any attempt to go towards divinity. Mind, ego, and these vasanas are always against going towards divinity. So, whenever we sit for meditation, all our vasanas they will start agitating, they will produce, they will generate thoughts over thoughts and dirty thoughts because they want to oppose any attempt going towards divinity. But never be afraid of these troubling thoughts. When they are in agitation, they are rising with high speed, energy, and all. That means our vasanas are going out, and a time will come they will perish forever. So don't worry. The because more and more troubling thoughts arising out with a speed means you are on the right track. This is the progress of your meditation. So don't worry. The obstructing vasanas may look like a large mountain which obstruct your progress. Don't be intimidated by the size. It is not a mountain of rock, it is a mountain of camphor. If you light one corner of it with the flame of discriminative attention, it will all burn to nothing. So, carry on with your meditation, your self inquiry. Let the thoughts come and go. Don't worry. When they are coming with tremendous power, means they are going to perish. Don't worry. They are going to vanish forever. Stand back from the mountain of problems. Refuse to acknowledge that they are yours and they will dissolve and disappear before your eyes. Don't be deluded by your thoughts and vasanas. They are always trying to trick you into believing that you are a real person, that the world is real, and that all your problems are real. Don't fight them, just ignore them. Here you means this ego. Don't accept the delivery of all the wrong ideas that keep coming to you. Establish yourself in the conviction that you are the self and that nothing can stick to you or affect you. Once you have that conviction, you will find that you automatically ignore the habits of the mind. When the rejection of mental activities becomes continuous and automatic, you will begin to have the experience of the self. If you see two strangers quarreling in the distance, you do not give much attention to them because you know that the dispute is none of your business. Treat the contents of your mind in the same way. Instead of filling your mind with thoughts and then organizing fight between them, pay no attention to the mind at all. Rest quietly in the feeling of I am. I am. That is means my Atma exists. I am. I am. I, I am. I add exist. That is I am Sat, Chit, Anand, which is consciousness, and cultivate the attitude that all thoughts, all perceptions are not me. When you have learned to regard your mind as a distant stranger, you will not pay any attention to all the obstacles it keeps intervening for you. Mental problems feed on the attention that you give them. The more you worry about them, the strongest they become. If you ignore them, they lose their power and finally vanish. Next question. I am always thinking and believing that there is only the self, but somehow there is still a feeling that I want or need something more. Annamalai Swami replies, who is that wants? If you can find the answer to that question, there will be no one to want anything. Question. Children are born without egos. As they begin to grow up, how do their egos arise and cover the self? Annamalai Swami replies, as young children may appear to have no egos, but its ego and all the latent vasanas that go with it are there in seed form. As the child's body grows bigger, the ego also grows bigger. The ego is produced by the power of Maya illusion, which is one of the Shakti's power of the self. Question. How does Maya operate? How does it originate? Since nothing exists except the self, how does the self manages to conceal its own nature from itself? Oh my God, what a wonderful question this. Annamalai Swami replies, the self, which is infinite power and the source of all power, is indivisible. Yet, within this indivisible self, there are five Shaktis or powers with varying functions which operate simultaneously. The five Shaktis are creation, preservation, destruction, veiling, that is called Maya Shakti, and grace. The fifth Shakti, grace, counteracts and removes the fourth Shakti, which is Maya. So, when Maya is totally inactive, that is when the identity with the body and the mind has been dropped, there is an awareness of consciousness of being. This word being is pointing towards our Atma. Remember these, there are certain words we have to understand. Being means we exist as Atma. When one is established in that state, there is no body, no mind, no world. These three things are just ideas which are brought into an apparent existence when Maya is present and active. When Maya is active, the sole effective way to dissolve it is the path shown by Bhagwan. One must do self inquiry and discriminate between what is real and what is unreal. It is the power of Maya which makes us believe in the reality of things which have no reality outside our imagination. If you ask what are these imaginary things, the answer is everything that is not the formula self. Anything non self is or Maya, imaginary things. The self alone is real. Everything else is a figment of our imagination. It is not helpful to inquire why there is Maya and how it operates. If you are in a boat which is leaking, you don't waste time asking whether the hole was made by an Italian, a Frenchman, or an Indian. You just plug the leak. Don't worry about where Maya comes from. Put all your energy into escaping from its effect. If you try to investigate the origin of Maya with your mind, you are doomed to fail because any answer you come up with will be a Maya answer. If you want to understand how Maya operates and originates, you should establish yourself in the self, the one place where you can be free of it, and then watch how it takes you over time. You fail to keep your attention there. So this is like this: you want to douse fire by putting petrol. You want to extinguish the fire, but you, instead of some dust or some soil or some other materials, you are putting petrol. So instead of to be extinguished, it will be more powerful. Next question. You say that Maya is one of the Shaktis. What exactly do you mean by Shakti? Very good. Annamalai Swami replies, Shakti is energy or power. It is a name for the dynamic aspect of the self. Shakti and Shanti, peace, are two aspects of the same consciousness. If you want to separate them at all, you can say that Shanti is the unmanifest aspect of the self, while Shakti is the manifest. But really, they are not separate. A flame has two properties, light and heat. The two cannot be separate. Shanti and Shakti are like the sea and its waves. Shanti, the unmanifest aspect, is the vast, unmoving body of water. The waves that appear and move on the surface are Shakti. Shanti is motionless, vast, and all encompassing, whereas waves are active. Bhagwan used to say that after realization, the Jivan Mukta, liberated one, experiences Shanti within and is established permanently in that Shanti. In that state of a realization, he sees that all activities are caused by Shakti. After realization, one is aware that there is no individual people doing anything. Instead, there is an awareness that all activities are the Shakti of the oneself. The Jnani who is fully established in the Shanti is always aware that Shakti is not separate from him. In that awareness, everything is his self and all actions are his. Alternatively, it is equally correct to say he never he never does anything. This is one of the paradoxes of the self. The universe is controlled by the one Shakti, sometimes called Parmeswara Shakti, the power of the Supreme Lord. This moves, orders things. Nature laws, such as the laws that keep the planets in their orbits, are all manifestation of the Shakti. Next question is, you say that everything is the self, even Maya. If this is so, why can't I see the self clearly? Why is it hidden from me? Annamalai Swami replies, because you are looking in the wrong direction. You have the idea that the self is something that you see or experience. There is not so. The self is the awareness or the consciousness in which the seeing and experiencing take place. Even if you don't see the self is still there. Bhagwan sometimes remarked humorously, people just open a newspaper and glance through it. Then they say, I have seen the paper. But really, they have not seen the paper. They have only seen the letters and pictures there on it. There can be no words or pictures without the paper, but people always forget the paper while they are reading the words. Bhagwan would then use this analogy to show that while people see the names and forms that appear on the screen of consciousness, the, they ignore the screen itself. With this kind of partial vision, it is easy to come to the conclusion that all forms are unconnected with each other and separate from the person who sees them. If people were to be aware of the consciousness instead of the form that appear in it, they would realize that all forms are just appearances which manifest within the one individual consciousness. That consciousness is the self that you are looking for. You can be that consciousness, but you can never see it because it is not something that is separate from you. Question. You talk a lot about vasanas. Could you please tell me exactly what they are and how they function? And again, it is the vasanas which cover up the, and okay, exactly what they are and how they function. Annamalai Swami replies. Vasanas are habits of the mind. They are the mistaken identification and repeated thought patterns that occur again and again. It is the vasanas which cover up the experience of the self. Vasanas arise, catch your attention, and pull you outwards toward the world rather than inwards toward the self. This happens so often and so continuously that the mind never gets a chance to rest or to understand its real nature. Cocks like to claw the ground. It is a perpetual habit with them. Even if they are standing on bare rock, they still try to scratch the ground. Vasanas function in much the same way. They are habits and patterns of thought that appear again and again, even if they are not wanted. Most of our ideas and thoughts are incorrect. When they rise habitually as vasanas, they brainwash us into thinking that they are true. The fundamental vasanas, such as I am the body or I am the mind, have appeared in us so many times that we automatically accept that they are true. Even our desire to transcend our vasana is a vasana. When we think I must meditate or I must make an effort, we are just organizing a fight between two different vasanas. You can only escape the habits of the mind by abiding in consciousness as consciousness. Be who you are, just be still. Ignore all the vasanas that rise in the mind and instead fix your attention on the self. Next question is, Bhagwan often told devotees to be still. Did he mean be mentally still Annamalai Swami. Bhagwan's famous instruction, Summa Eru, be still, is often misunderstood. It does not mean that you should be physically still. It means that you should always abide in the self. If there is too much physical stillness, tamogana, a state of mental torpor, arises and predominates. In that state, you will feel very sleepy and mentally dull. Rajoguna, a state of excessive mental activity, on the other hand, produces emotions and a mind which is restless. In Sattva Guna, a state of mental quietness and clarity, there is stillness and harmony. If mental activity is necessary while one is in Sattva Guna, it takes place. But for the rest of the time, there is stillness. When Tamoguna and Rajoguna predominate, the self cannot be felt. If Satoguna predominates, one experiences peace, bliss, clarity, and an absence of wandering thought. This is the stillness that Bhagwan was prescribing. Question. Bhagwan in talks with Ramana Maharshi speaks of bhoga vasanas, vasanas which are for enjoyment, and bandha vasanas, vasanas which produce bondage. He says that for the jnani there are bhoga vasanas but no bandha vasanas. Would Swamiji please clarify the difference? Annamalai Swami replies, nothing causes bondage for the jnani because his mind is dead. In the absence of mind, he keeps himself only as consciousness. Because the mind is dead, he is no longer able to identify himself with the body. But even though he knows that he is not body, it is a fact that the body is still alive. That body will continue to live and the jnani will continue to be aware of it until its own karma, destined action is exhausted. Because the jnani is still aware of the body, he will be aware of the thoughts and vasanas that arise in that body. None of these vasanas has the power to cause bondage for him because he never identifies with them. But they do have the power to make the body behave in certain ways. The body of the jnani enjoys and experiences these vasanas, although the jnani himself is not affected by them. That's why it is sometimes said that for the jnani there are bhoga vasanas but no vasanas. The bhoga vasanas differ from jnani to jnani. Some jnani may accumulate wealth, some may sit in silence, some may study the shastras, scriptures, while others may remain illiterate. Some may get married and raise families, but others may become celibate monk. It is the bhoga vasanas which determine the kind of lifestyle a jnani will lead. The jnani is aware of the consequences of all these vasanas without ever identifying with them. Because of this, he never falls back into samsara, worldly illusion again. The vasanas arise because of the habits and practices of previous lifetimes. That's why they differ from jnani to jnani. When vasanas rise in ordinary people who still identify with the body and the mind, they cause likes and dislikes. Some vasanas are embraced wholeheartedly, while others are rejected as being undesirable. These likes and dislikes generate desires and fears, which in turn produce more karma. While you are still making judgments about what is good, that is bad, you are identifying with the mind and making new karma for yourself. When new karma has been created like this, it means you have to take another birth to enjoy it. The Jnani's body carries out all the acts which are destined for it, but because the Jnani makes no judgment about what is good or bad, and because he has no likes or dislikes, he is not creating any new karma for himself. Because he knows that he is not the body, he can witness all the activities without getting involved in them in any way. There will be no rebirth for the jnani because once the mind has been destroyed, there is no possibility of any new karma being created. There will be no rebirth for the jnani. Question. So, whatever happens to us in life only happens because of our past like and dislikes? Annamalai Swami says yes. Question. How can one learn not to react when vasanas arise in the mind? Is there anything special that we should be looking out for? Annamalai Swami says, you must learn to recognize them when they arise. That is the only way. If you can catch them each and early enough and frequently enough, they will not cause you trouble. If you want to pay attention to a special area of danger, which watch how and five senses operate. It is the nature of the mind to seek simul, uh, stimulation through the five senses. The mind catches hold of sense impressions and processes them in such a way that they produce long chains of uncontrolled thoughts. Learn to watch how your senses behave. Learn to watch how the mind reacts to sense impressions. If you can stop the mind from reacting to sense impressions, you can eliminate a large number of your vasanas. Bhagwan never like or dislike anything. If we have likes or dislikes, if we hate or love someone or something, some bondage will be arise in the mind. Jnanis never like or dislike anything. That's why they are free of all bondage. So here ends the video. So thank you, my dear friends, for watching this video. Please subscribe my channel. Please subscribe the channel. Thank you. Thank you, my dear friend.